I have worked at Qualcomm, Miller Coors, Intel, Google, Apple, Meta.
What's it really like to work there?
Generally, across all of them, I think the commonality is the people and not really the product. There are also not great people, and finding those is equally as important as finding the super great people.
How valuable is a business school network?
So many opportunities to do different things I had never done before. And so you start to get this collection of experiences where, I'm confident that if I don't know how to do it, I can find somebody who will help me. That's better. I know how to get help and I know how to figure it out.
The network gives you so much that it makes your possibilities infinite. Do you think you could have gotten in the roles that you had if you had not gone to business school?
No, absolutely not.
You are one of those women who it seems like you've done it all. How do you make it work? How does the life of Selena Salazar, woman in tech, do it?
When you're in your late teens and early 20s, you're making these decisions that have such an exponential impact on your life, whether it's where to go to school, because then that determines your friends and your location and maybe your first job. I think it's like a lot of little nudges along the way, not these hard pivots all the time.
So when you think about business school, and there are so many people over the years who will say, oh, you need one, you don't need one, what would you tell someone now? Welcome to our career interview series on GMAT Club. My name is Soojin Kwon. I'm the former Dean of Admissions at the Michigan Ross School of Business and a former board member at GMAC. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Selena Salazar, who began her career as an engineer and pursued her dreams of getting an MBA and moving into the tech industry. Selena has carved out an impressive career working in some of the most prominent tech companies while raising 3 young children with her husband. If you have any questions, just leave them here in the comments. And now, let's dive into the life of a tech product manager. So excited to talk with Selena Salazar. Hi, Selena, how are you?
Hey, Soojin, good. How are you?
Good. The reason I'm so excited to talk to you is because you are one of those women who it seems like you've done it all. You've had this amazing career, amazing family, and you are just so energetic and positive. It just exudes through the camera. So I'm excited to dive in. So what I want to first start with is let's share your career journey. Walk me through where you are now and how you got there.
Absolutely. Really happy to be here. Let's see. I currently am a director of product at a major tech company working on a 0 to 1 product. It is super cool. I'm very excited about it. That's not what I'm here about today. So my career journey started, I did electrical engineering in undergrad, and then was an engineer for several years after that. Left engineering to go to business school. It was fantastic. And then while I was in business school, I interned as a brand manager for a CPG company. After graduation, I joined a tech company as a product manager. And since then, I have gone to a bunch of different major tech companies across product and product marketing. But really have kind of found the spot that I love, which is product management.
So CPG to product management, how does one do that?
Sometimes I ask myself the same question. I don't really know how I convinced so many people to let me do that, but I think it goes back to telling your story and why you belong there and why it makes sense and why it makes it easier for them to hire you because you make sense and the story fits. And I think for me, a lot of that was like being data driven with the engineering and being able to prove that, and also being excited about the product and the space and the learnings and the marketing aspect of it.
So tell me about the brands that you've worked at.
Let's see. I have worked at Qualcomm, Miller Coors, Intel, Google, Apple, Meta. I think that's it.
You've named some big ones there. So 25 years ago, what did you think you'd be doing now? You probably had no idea that you'd be walking this journey.
I'm trying to calculate how old I was 25 years ago, but I didn't know that this existed. It's funny though, I did write my business school essays on wanting to do product management, not because I knew what it was or because I really thought I loved it, but because it made the most sense at the time. Coming from engineering, yeah, product management makes sense. Let's do that. But in reality, I wanted to do marketing, hence the CPG internship. So I definitely didn't know what it was and how much it varied across companies. The role is wildly different depending on which company you're at. And kind of finding that sweet spot has been a little bit of movement in between.
Tell me what you loved about each of those, because they're so different. The companies, the products, and your role. But you probably got something great out of each one of them.
I did.
Boil it down. What would it be for each?
I think generally across all of them, I think the commonality is the people. I've met some really, really incredible people along the way who have helped me, whether I was there or at a different company, with advice and mentorship, friendship, all of those things. The people have really made a difference. And then in the career capacity, I really learned in all of the marketing roles was really focused on the customer and the consumer and the channel and just so much of their habits and not really the product. So it was fascinating to really get into the behaviors and the people behind, the numbers and the volumes and the dollar signs and all that. And then in the technical roles, was really about understanding how products are made and how they go from an idea on a slide deck or in a document to being in almost everybody's home, which is crazy to be a part of a process like that. And so I really learned all of those at different companies. And it's been now kind of where I get to bring it all together, which is exciting.
So one of the things that you said at the beginning of your response was around the people is something that was important to you. And as all of us navigate our careers, we want to work with great people. How do you know you're going to join an organization where the people are going to be a good fit for you? Were there things that you did that made you say, oh, I think this one's a winner for me?
This is a really good question because I think there are also not great people. And finding those is equally as important as finding the super great people. And both are really hard to figure out, especially when you're interviewing and you're sussing things out. But they become pretty clear, as a job or a role goes on. And I think some of the bad managers that I had actually helped me move along. Because they were so bad, I wanted to leave, and it just ended up putting me in a better spot because of it. Whether it was getting yelled at because I wanted to move internally and actually had already done everything to make the move happen, to being told, oh, how evil of you when moving to another company, which is just don't talk to people that way. It was very clear these are not the people that I want to be surrounded by.
Yeah, but were there things that you could have seen on the front end to have helped you avoid that bad manager? Or really it doesn't come out because everyone's on their best behavior, like on a first date, and so you don't find out until you really spend some time with them?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It also depends on who you get to talk to on the team, whether it's direct reports or some of their XFN partners or their peers. Because through the interview process, you don't really get a good sense of the people because they're trying to flush out your skill set and get to know you. And you're right, they're on their best behavior.
And ultimately, they're trying to sell you. Come join us. And so they're putting out their best people, putting on their best shows. Did you do any kind of behind-the-scenes conversation, try to find people who maybe were not a part of the interview process that you could ask questions to, what's it really like to work there?
I think my default is always look for my business school friends and network who are at the companies already to get a good sense of what's going on, what it's like. Hopefully there's somebody they can refer you to chat with who's in the function that you're interviewing for to get an even better sense. Because sometimes it's hard, for somebody in a different business group or in a different job function to tell you what your role is going to be like and what your working group is going to be like.
Enjoyed the video? Hit the like button and subscribe to support us in bringing more great content. Do you think you could have gotten the roles that you had if you had not gone to business school?
No, absolutely not. I think it depends on who you are and your background and your experience level. For me, as a Latina in tech, I don't get the benefit of the doubt. I need all the check boxes. I need the full list of all the things that are required. I have to fulfill those, and I know that. I need to be the least risky hire and the most obvious choice. And that comes down to I have to have a technical degree, I have to have an MBA, I have to have great work experience, and I have all of that now, which is super exciting, but it's been a long road to get there.
It sounds like you were really intentional and you had a master plan, but did you really, when you were a high school senior or graduating from college, like did you have this master plan of, okay, I'm going to get an engineering degree and then I'm going to get my MBA and then I'm going to go work in tech?
I would love to say yes, but I think we both know it's definitely not true. I could never have planned this, to be realistic. Like, I think in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to college and be done. When I was in college, I was like, I'm never going to grad school. I'm never going back to school. This is so hard. This is so terrible. I went back to school, clearly. But like, I didn't know, I didn't really know what the different engineering types were like. I think I applied to almost every different engineering discipline at every different school that I applied to. Electrical one. And I also, though, there, like I made friends along the way who really helped me figure out what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And when I figured out I didn't want to do engineering anymore, it was actually pretty far into it. And I wish that I would have realized that sooner or realized how to make that change a little bit sooner. And I think that's where I could have benefited from having a longer term plan, actually.
So how long between undergrad and business school did you have? And then what was the thing that made you decide, I need to get an MBA?
I think it was 5 years of full-time work experience, but I had interned for a few years throughout the year. It was really, I knew I didn't want to, I was writing camera driver code, in the lab measuring things. I could probably go a full day without verbally talking to anyone. Oh my social skills had definitely taken a hit. You know me, that seems really weird now that I would have a day like that. Sometimes I can't believe that my days used to be like that. But once I knew I wanted to make a change and I started looking around at what was around me and what was available, and I really started talking to people, a couple of things stood out. One was that most of the people who I thought had really cool jobs, they had MBAs. So that seemed like, okay, I should probably go and do that. And then at one point I wanted to move to program management. And my manager at the time said, oh, well, I can't help you with that. So I felt really stuck. And so I felt so stuck that like the only clear, obvious way out to me was going back to school, getting the MBA, hitting the reset button, and figuring out what to do with now an engineering degree and an MBA.
Did you have a mentor or a role model in the process? Or were you kind of doing it solo?
I was kind of doing it solo, which is a little bit scary. There were a couple of really incredible women who gave me advice along the way, but it was nothing like maybe the support system I have now. And so that is like one of those things I didn't know that I needed, or I didn't know was available. I didn't know how to go and get it or who to talk to try and get it. So I think there's like right after undergrad, you're figuring out so much stuff. That I don't come from a family of professionals necessarily. So, I wasn't getting that knowledge at home and I wasn't getting it at work. So I was really just kind of like figuring out all these different things and trying to wrap them into one thing called a career.
And so if there's a young person out there who has a background like yours where they don't have access to role models or mentors that can help them dream bigger dreams, what kind of advice would you give someone to find those people?
I think some advice is probably just talk to as many people as you can, because you can't say, oh, look at a list. That's going to be my mentor. Like, it doesn't work that way. You just have to find any common connection you have with anybody you want to chat with, or maybe they're just impressive. The thing is, everybody remembers when they first started out. So most people are very willing to talk about themselves and their career path. And find any in you have and make time with them, chat. And some of those will turn into, hey, can we chat again in a few months? And some of those won't. It'll be one time chat and that's it. And that's fine. But you can't get to a point where you have great mentors if you don't start talking to people as soon as possible.
Yeah. One of the things that I tell young people is it may feel uncomfortable to reach out to people, but you start with one, and that person may say, hey, you can talk to my friend who does this in another organization. And so it can just grow from there, but it's that first step that might feel a little bit hard, and it's a skill that can feel easier the more you do it.
Absolutely. And also sometimes people won't respond, and that's okay.
That's okay, yes. Don't take that as a, oh my gosh, you are a worthless human being. It's, I'm really busy and I just missed it, or this is not a good time right now.
Yep, absolutely.
So you have a big job and you have a family. Tell me how you manage it all. How do you make it work? How does the life of Selena Salazar, a woman in tech with 3 sons and a husband, do it?
2 daughters and a son. So I have, I do have
2 daughters.
No, 2 sons and a daughter. Even I got it wrong.
We're both wrong.
I know.
And you had them.
Let's see. How do I get it all done? My partner is incredible, so that definitely helps. Like, my husband is absolutely amazing. He's probably, I don't know if he'll watch this, so I'm not doing it for him. But he does a lot to keep everything going. And it really is a partnership, in so many ways. So I start there. You know how excited I get about this. So I recently got 2 washers and 2 dryers because I found out from a friend that apparently anybody with more than 2 kids has 2 washers and 2 dryers, and it's phenomenal.
That's a thing?
It's a thing. It looks a little laundromat-ish, but it's amazing. And then outsource what you can, right? Whether it's household help, groceries, anything like that, just outsourcing all the things. I think it also helps that I do think my job is super cool. And I get to talk to my kids about it. And so it is exciting. It's not this like draining thing that I go and do every day, or this, thing where I'm like, oh, I can't believe I have to go into the office and all this stuff. It's like, oh my God, I get to go work on this thing. Like, I got to see this today, or I did this today. And so I think the enthusiasm does help. Otherwise, I don't know how it would really be sustainable.
Do your kids express any interest in going into business or getting an engineering degree, hearing you talk about it?
I try not to push them because I think generally they're 5, 8, and 10. The 8 and 10-year-old definitely are, if I suggest it, they're not going to want to do it. So I keep my suggestions at a minimum, and just more try and share my excitement rather than like, hey, you should go and do this. Maybe one day though.
Yeah. It's funny with my own kids. They initially said, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do anything that my mom did. She's so not cool. And then what did they do? They're both business majors.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. So tell me about an epic failure, or maybe it's not epic, but a failure where you went, oh, okay, I'm gonna figure this out.
I think one of the biggest ones was probably not getting into business school the first year that I applied. I applied to a bunch of different schools, didn't get in anywhere, and I was crushed. I cried.
What do you think was the reason you didn't get in?
So I think a lot of things. It was not GMAT, I'll tell you that. But I think, one, my story there were a lot of holes in my story. I didn't do the homework. I didn't really visit any campuses. I didn't get to know the people. So I didn't have a good sense of why I wanted to go to that specific school. And I just wasn't thinking about it holistically as like part of my life. It was just like, oh, this thing I'm going to go and do. And so I think that I decided I was still going to go to business school, even though they weren't going to have me yet. And I had mentally prepared myself to apply up to 3 years. If I didn't get in the second year, I was going to apply one more time, and then I would reevaluate whether or not to try again. But I gave myself 3 years. I didn't need the 3.
Determination.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? When I decide I'm going to do something, it takes a lot to dissuade me. Okay. I got in the second time, but I did the work that time. I visited campuses. I talked to current students. I talked to alumni. I talked to more people in the field that I thought I wanted to go into. My story made so much more sense because it was grounded in like things people normally did with my kind of background. And I think in that process, I was also more clear with what I wanted with myself, not just, in an essay on paper. So I do think that not only, was it an epic failure, but it also was just like this incredible opportunity that changed everything else, because I ended up going to Michigan Ross and I hadn't even applied there my first year. And it turned out that was the perfect school for me.
Wow.
I don't even know how to talk about it without sounding corny, but I loved business school and I loved Michigan. And had I gotten in the first year, I wouldn't have even looked there, and it probably wouldn't have been a good experience or a good fit, or at least not as good as it was. So I feel incredibly lucky to have not gotten in that first year now.
I love that. Being grateful for a failure because it ended up resulting in something even better, which is how you can hope that epic failures will turn into. What did you love about business school?
I think, so for me, I went to business school because I wanted a career change. I wanted so I'm born and raised in California. I wanted to get out of California for a little bit. I went to undergrad here. I love to travel, but I had never lived anywhere else, and that just felt kind of odd to me. So I wanted to get out of California for a bit, not forever.
And the thought of Michigan didn't make you feel like, where am I going?
So, I like to do hard things, and it felt like if you can survive a Michigan winter, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And it was very cold though. I will admit that. And then also there were some things about my undergrad that I didn't love. I really love sports, and so I wanted to go somewhere that had college sports. I always got kind of jealous when, it was whatever college sports were on TV, and there were people I was with or my friends had a school to cheer for, and I never had that. I never had that sense of school spirit or camaraderie. So I was looking for that. And then at the end of the day, I wanted a really good name. So all of those things I found at Ross. I think for me, what I was maybe most surprising and that I really did love was the people. I met some incredible friends. Actually, I was in New York this past weekend visiting some friends from business school. Yes, in the winter, but it was incredible. We had so much fun. Our stomachs were hurting from laughing after the weekend.
That's awesome.
And we're all come from such different backgrounds and are doing such different things now, but we shared this intense, incredible 2 years together, and that really bonded us for life. And so I'm super thankful for the friends that I didn't know I was going to make. And then of course the stuff I knew I was going to get, the career change. I got that, and I'm so happy with where I am and what I'm doing that I can't imagine not doing it.
What do you think business school made possible that wouldn't have been possible without having gone?
I think for me, it was a newfound sense of confidence. And that was because there were so many opportunities to do different things I had never done before. So I got to co-chair GBR Go Blue Rendezvous, which was our admitted student weekend in the spring. And I was coming from engineering, which is like the least social, I used to go and not talk to anybody, to then co-chairing the most social, like biggest student-led activity at school. And so that was just like, I can't believe they're trusting me to do this, one. But two, after it was done, was just like, wow, I've never done anything like that. And I did it. And so like after a while, you start getting all of these things like that where like, oh, I've never done that before. I've never presented a case study. Well, now I've done that. I've never, done a consulting project while traveling. Oh, well, now I've done that. And so you start to get this collection of experiences where maybe you haven't done something before, but now you have a track record of like, yeah, I haven't done that, but I've done a lot of things that I've never done before, and they've turned out pretty well. So I'm confident that if I don't know how to do it, I can find somebody who will help me, or I can find somebody who will point me in another direction that's better. I know how to get help, and I know how to figure it out.
So you developed new muscles that you didn't know you had and weren't sure that you'd be able to develop, as well as you gained a network that not only helps you professionally, but that you love hanging out with.
I think the network is a huge piece. And I think, a lot of schools and a lot of GMAT prep and business school prep talks about the network, but it's really hard to explain it without going through it. So I do think it is a little bit expected, but also unexpected, because I didn't realize how deep it would go.
How has the network been valuable for you? And it doesn't have to be specific to the network that you specifically have, but in general, how valuable is a business school network?
Incredibly valuable, I think. But yeah, you're right. Like it's the people from business school, but it's also all the people who were there before and all the people who've come after. And they kind of become the like instant safe space, whether it's at work or at your kid's school. Actually, my kid's school, somebody who was, I think, 2 years after me, his kids just started and they're in the same class. And I'm like, this is so, we went to Michigan and we're in California. And then because of where I went, it was such a part of a larger school with such other great programs. There are just a lot of Michigan people out there. So it's not like I only have a network with the business school folks. It's also anybody who just went there. The recent national championship in my neighborhood, there were 3 houses flying Michigan flags. And I was walking around like, what?
In California.
It was amazing to see. And my kids were like, oh, look, they like Michigan too. So it's exciting. I think the network is a safe space, but it also gives you, I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of like, how do you start networking? How do you talk to people if you haven't talked to them before? Like, that's just another connection point of like, hey, I see you went to Michigan, or like, go blue. And then people will generally reach back out. And it's amazing that something that small can get such a big response time and time again. It's very impressive.
Tell me about some of the biggest decisions you've made in your life, and how did you make them?
Probably talked about going to business school already. That was definitely a big decision, and all the things I weighed. I think the other big decision is probably getting married. And the person and having kids and just the family side of it, because those are huge decisions. I think that, outside of that, there's nothing that I'm really deciding in my life that has such huge implications as like, other than where to go to undergrad, where to go to grad school, who to marry, like all of those decisions have been made. And so I'm kind of living that now, but other than I'm trying to think of something other than the family. But I think it really is.
Go ahead.
I think it really does come down to like my partner and knowing that he was right for me and that I could have the things that I wanted to have and have a partner in that and not just a spouse.
You probably heard Sheryl Sandberg has often said, one of the most important business decisions you'll make in your life is the partner you choose to spend your life with. And that's definitely true. It can help your career or not help your career in so many ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's no way that, I can take a business trip and leave my family if my husband was unsupportive, or, if we didn't have a partnership, knowing that sometimes I'm going to be late, or sometimes I have to go to work dinners or happy hours or a last minute, trip somewhere. And so having that support, I think is really, really incredible. And it's also how it works. It wouldn't work otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do outside of work?
Do we have free time? Is that real? I have 3 kids, so I honestly don't really have much free time. Maybe I'll work on it one day, but I also feel like eventually they'll get to a point where they aren't around as much. So I'm not.
They're not going to need you as much.
I know. Sometimes that sounds great, but I'll also be sad. I do make time to work out. Peloton and my Peloton instructors are my morning friends. Who I hang out with every morning. And other than that, it's a lot of kids' sports, birthday parties, washing and cutting fruit. A lot of that.
You're at that stage of life of all the kid activities. And then once they get to high school, they're going to be like, bye-bye, Mom. We're doing our own thing.
Oh, absolutely. So I've got a few more years.
You do. So let's do a lightning round. First app you look at on your phone in the morning? Or is it
Instagram.
your phone?
Instagram. Yeah, I do.
Oh.
I probably shouldn't. I don't know.
You're human. Okay. Tell me a fun fact or something surprising about you.
I mean,
You mentioned
we
a
went
motorcycle.
over. We already went over the washer and dryer. So I do have my motorcycle license, but I don't have a motorcycle, and I don't really ride anymore or regularly. But I have maintained my motorcycle license. Yes.
So what possessed you to get a motorcycle license?
Something I decided. So my dad got really into motorcycles. And this was, I think at the time I was an engineer. I hadn't gone to business school yet. And so I was like, I'll get into motorcycles too, because it will give me this other thing to talk about with my dad and have in common. And so I did in California, at least, you can go and take a course and they teach you all the safety stuff. And then after that, you take the test and you get your motorcycle license. Went through all that, did the test, all that stuff. Was at my parents' house. My dad had 2 motorcycles, so I rode one, he rode the other. I think we made it halfway around the block, and the battery died on mine, and he was so freaked out the whole time that I was going to get hurt that it was actually not a very fun ride. But we took a few photos, and it's pretty funny now when we talk about it. But he's not into motorcycles either anymore, but it's still, I think it's still pretty special, and I'm glad I did it.
That's really neat that it was something that you could do with your dad that one time.
One time.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Messy slides, lack of attention to detail. It drives me crazy.
So note to anyone who makes slides for Selena, make sure they are impeccable.
We know.
They
Update
know,
the
that's
date, alignment, fonts, come on.
Yeah. You heard it here. If you could go back and give your 20-something self advice, what would it be?
So I would love to have a great piece of advice. I don't think a 25-year-old me would have listened. Knowing myself and knowing me at 25, definitely wouldn't have listened. But I do think I would have given her a really big hug. Like, I think she needed encouragement. She needed a really big hug, and just to be told, like, it's going to be okay. Keep going. It's going to be okay. So not advice, but a hug and encouragement for sure.
Do you feel like your 25-year-old self would have appreciated the hug, or would 25-year-old you have said, I got it figured out. I got this?
That's a great question. I think 25-year-old me probably would have just held on and not let go. Like, I think it got, it was hard times when you're figuring out what to do with your life. So I definitely think that she would have appreciated a hug.
I think one of the things that we think at that stage of our life is, oh my gosh, this is such a big decision. Every decision I make is such a big decision. And if I make the wrong one, my life will go askew. And what I have found is every branch that you take can lead to some other thing that you might not have experienced that could also be great, and you just don't know it. And so we have these visions of what our life should look like, and we try to walk that path, but we don't know what else is out there. Did you feel that way? Do you feel that way now?
It took me, you know what, I do, but I think I look at it slightly different, and we've talked about this too before, is like, when you're in your late teens and early 20s, you're making these decisions that have such an exponential impact on your life, whether it's where to go to school, because then that determines your friends and your location and maybe your first job, to what is that first job, and, your relationships. You're making all of these decisions that impact your life so substantially, and you're just so young. And then even at 25, you're still very young, but you're figuring out like, oh, hey, these were terrible decisions, or you don't know yet. It's not that like you can say definitively all of these were great decisions. You can probably point out the bad ones. And you might have a sense on some others, but you don't really have the whole feedback loop of what was good and what wasn't. And I do think you have then kind of till the end of time, right, to fix it, to get it to where you want, to make the decisions that you want. So whether it was like not the major for you or not the job for you, you can go to business school and get the job for you. You can get out of the relationship that isn't working and into one that is. And you can surround yourself with people who will support you rather than just, maybe people you inherited along the way as friends because of circumstance. So I do think there is a lot of power in your late 20s to have a lot more control with the lens of learning from past decisions.
I would say yes. And I think as we're in our early 20s, we feel like this decision matters so much. And ultimately, it matters what you do with the opportunities you have around you. And so you talked about the school you choose, the friends you make, the job you choose. I think it almost doesn't matter at this point, as long as you make the most of every opportunity that you're given. And so two people could go to the same school and have really different experiences, and one loved it and the other one didn't. And it depends on what they did in that experience. Same thing with jobs. Some people could have the same role, and then those two people could have wildly different outcomes afterwards, depending on how much they embraced their opportunities or not. And so one of the things that I try to share with younger folks is don't feel like every step you make is going to be the determinant of the rest of your life. In some ways it will, but you can always find different paths and different opportunities will come along because of that. Have you found that to be part of your experience?
I think so. I think it's like a lot of little nudges along the way, not these hard pivots all the time. Because even something like a hard pivot where, maybe leaving one career to do another one takes time, and there's lots of small nudges along the way. So it's not this just like you wake up one day and, I have a different career. It's, I'm going to go to business school. And then you start that exploration and you go to business school and you're learning and you're learning from your network and your friends and also in the classroom. And then every job after that is very much another learning experience. What did you like from that job? What did you not like? What did you love about that manager? What did you not love? How was the work? How was the company? And your experience is going to be very different than somebody, on the another group, maybe even on the same team, just because of everybody's a different person and they have a different experience.
So when you think about business school, and there are so many people over the years who'll say, you need one, you don't need one, business school is going to be helpful, not helpful. What would you tell someone now, having gone through it and having experienced the experiences that you have?
I think it's a very personal decision. And it very much depends on what you want, what you need, and what you need to get out of the experience. And so for some people it will be worth it, and other people it won't be. And I think the more you know about, what you want to get out, helps you figure out the right route to go. Because maybe the part-time program is for you, or the exec program, or no program. But for me, it was absolutely worth it. And I would not be where I am without it. And I'm really content, happy. I feel good about where I am. So it's hard for me to say anything other than yes, absolutely, it was worth it. And of all the people who you chat with along the way, hopefully they're saying that their decision was the right one as well, right? So for somebody who didn't go, hopefully that was the right decision for them. And for everybody else who went to different schools, hopefully that was the right decision for them, because it is a huge investment in your life, and you want it to be worth it regardless of where you go or what you end up doing.
Absolutely. I generally tell people the value of getting a business degree is that it opens the aperture for opportunities, because it is not a single profession, it is not a single industry, and the network gives you so much that it makes your possibilities infinite. I think that's one of the biggest selling points in my mind for getting an MBA. And I love what you said about the confidence building. When I talk to MBA grads year after year, when I ask them, what is the thing that you most value from this experience? So many of them talk about the confidence they now have because of what they've learned and the experiences that they've gained and the people that they've met. And that's hugely valuable. I think there's it's a confidence that's hard to get without having gone through that experience.
Bad rap of like that, they're so overconfident. It's not that like I know everything. It's that I can figure it out and I can figure out the right people to help me. I can figure out how to get help. Not that I have all the answers. And so I think that confidence is absolutely a huge, huge benefit that I didn't really expect going into it.
That's a great way to put it. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you?
When we're both going to be in Ann Arbor again so we can hang out in person.
When are you going to be back in Ann Arbor so we can hang out in person?
I have no idea. I guess I should ask you when you'll be in California. No, this was really fun. Thank you so much for chatting.
It was great to talk with you, Selena.